Hello, this is Nora Swain, and welcome back to podcast episode number 2. This episode is going to be all about thrifting fashion and the latest trends over the last couple of years. Over the last couple of years, especially during COVID, I myself have noticed that a lot more people are really conscious about the waste that they create when buying their own clothing. So they tend to not buy things that are considered fast fashion, which are pieces that are created with lesser quality of product, that are manufactured in non-sustainable environments, and things that tend to generally wear down quickly versus investing in higher end pieces that last a long time, or century buying as it's commonly called, when people buy items that they plan to have for 10, 20, 30 years and then eventually pass down into their own family. One of my sources for this podcast this week is WGSN, which is a trend forecasting system analyzing fashion, product design, consumer habits, analytics that track over the next 7 years for brands to monitor when developing next season's clothing. One of the WGSN articles, called Naughty's Rodeo, a key trend amongst Gen Z for seasons 22 denim, states that vintage fit still remains a huge consumer habit, especially with the Gen Z who prefer conscious shopping. A lot of some of the comeback trends also are fringe and original 1990s and 2000s denim that are still rising on must-have item lists. Another article on Rivet, sourcingjournal.com, features trend forecasting from WGSN that talks about how the pandemic really made people be very conscious about where they're spending their money and how their money is affecting the planet. People started shopping more sustainably, trying to find brands that came after their own values. So the pandemic definitely brought out emotional height buying. One of the trends with buying thrifting fashion is that awareness of sustainability, which brings a new level of love and sentiment to fashion rather than buying something that is something everybody has. Thrifting is definitely something of that emotional dressing that men and women are both taking into their own hands. It's not about going through old trunks of your parent or grandparents' clothing. It's about finding things that draw an emotional connection to you that are also conscious to your wallet and conscious to the planet in a consumer buying basis. For this week's podcast all about thrifting fashion, I connected with an old colleague of mine, Nola Roller, owner of Style Nation and freelance stylist based out of California.
I'm Nola Roller. I am a costume designer for television. I am also a celebrity stylist for red carpets. I also do live events. So I design clothes and I also pick out clothes for the last 22 years.
To get started with Nola, I first started asking her questions on why she personally uses clothing items that are thrifted within her own businesses.
The entertainment industry is very wasteful. Very, very wasteful. You end up at the end of a show with all kinds of stuff that you didn't use. I had my team look through the stuff that we already had. And we're going to use up everything we have and try not to buy anything.
So if people like celebrities or TV shows or even just a regular old person every day that doesn't work in fashion, if they can't wear something more than once, God forbid they wear something more than once, they get rid of it or they do something with it, they archive it, they donate it, whatever. How come when it's thrifted from a thrift store that it's cool and it's wearable again and it's repurposed, but when you keep it and you have to wear it more than once, it's, God forbid, it's a horrible thing?
Because it's ownership and it's I found this. It's egotistical in a way. I found this vintage store. That's why I can wear it.
After my interview with Nola, I quickly realized that the waste behind buying new clothing is something that a lot of people are very conscious about. During my final interview with my next source, I talked a lot about sort of growing up with thrifting, how in the past thrifting could commonly be seen as something where people who didn't have as much money couldn't be buying brand new items, versus now it being such a trendy thing. My final source for this podcast about thrifting is Amanda Britton, an assistant professor and coordinator of textiles and surface design at Kennesaw State University.
And there's also something different about the like shopping experience of like thrifting versus going to the shelf and there's 7 sizes of that same pink top, or like, there's a different experience of like for me it's like, when you pass those aisles or you are kind of browsing and you see something, like for me it's usually a pattern or it's a color. And it's like, whoa, like, what is that? And really, I don't even look at the size sometimes. Like, it's like, I'm not even grabbing, like, I'm not in the right size. I'm like, just kind of looking. And yeah, most of the time, I'll end up with like a large,
At this point in our interview, Amanda and I started talking about growing up with thrifting and how it's different for everybody.
Like when I was growing up, my mom, she never tailored her clothes. She was like, why would I spend $20 on a shirt and then spend $20 more
tailor. Yeah.
or tailoring it when I could just buy the $40 shirt that fits me a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I never was like considering, yes, I could go thrifting, that's easy enough, but then I got to take it all to get tailored. And I never did that unless it was for like a prom dress, which was, I think I've maybe gotten 3 or 4 items in my whole life mended to fit me.
Yeah, it's also interesting to hear you talk about like your upbringing and how that has affected the way you buy. So for instance, for me, I came from a mom who sewed our, our Christmas dresses and our, every Halloween costumes, everything. So that idea of like fabric being, it's just interesting because it's like, when I even sometimes will go into a thrift store and be like, that's a silk skirt. It's a large, for me, it's almost like, even if I'm not going to wear the skirt, I'm like, I'm going to buy it because like, how many yards of, silk fabric is that I could make it into something else? So it is interesting, like the mindset of like going into those places of like, can I get that altered to fit me, or can I just take that and use it for fabric for something else?
My interview with Amanda really pointed out the fact that everyone's journey with fashion is so unique to how they grew up, how their families grew up prior to them, and kind of what they're looking at on social media and what's trendy. For myself, thrifting is never something that I have ever actually done, but after my conversations with Nola and with Amanda and reading some of the trend forecast articles, I'm very interested to start my journey of thrifting, reducing my own carbon footprint and reducing the amount of fast fashion or non-sustainable fashion I participate in. If you're interested in learning about or participating in sustainable fashion, visit Owl Swap's homepage on www.sustainability.kennesaw.edu/owlswap. Thank you so much for learning with me all about sustainability and thrifting fashion, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.